Across the Borders, a family's journey to safety and resilience. The morning was eerily quiet in the small village nestled by the rolling hills. Amina, a mother of two, woke to the sound of distant gunfire. Her husband, Karim, was already at the window, his face pale. "The soldiers are coming," he said, his voice trembling. Amina felt her stomach tighten as she gathered their children, Layla, 8, and Sammy, 5. Rumors had spread for weeks about the advancing militia, and now the rumors had become reality. Karim had already packed a small bag with essentials: some bread, a bottle of water, a first aid kit, and a few family photographs. They couldn't take much. The rest of their belongings, a lifetime of memories and possessions, had to stay behind. As darkness fell, the family slipped out of the village with dozens of others. They followed an unmarked trail through the forest, their footsteps muffled by the soft earth. Amina held Sammy close, whispering reassurances as his small hands clung to her scarf. The journey was fraught with tension. The sound of a helicopter overhead sent the group scattering beneath the cover of trees. Amina's heart broke as she saw an elderly man too weak to continue being left behind. After 2 days of walking, they reached the river that marked the border. It was swollen from recent rains, the current fast and unforgiving. The group pooled their resources, constructing a makeshift raft out of logs and rope. Karim helped load Layla and Sammy onto the raft, his hands steady despite the fear in his eyes. The raft swayed dangerously as they pushed off, and Amina clutched her children tightly. Halfway across, a log came loose, and water began seeping in. Panic rippled through the group, but Karim and others managed to pull them to the opposite bank just before the raft sank. They collapsed on the muddy shore, wet, cold, but alive. On the other side, the family found themselves in unfamiliar territory. Karim had heard of smugglers who could guide them to the next safe zone, for a price. They approached a man in a tattered coat who demanded what little money they had left. Amina reluctantly handed over her grandmother's gold bracelet. The smuggler led them through the mountains, where the air grew thin and frigid. Layla developed a fever, her cheeks flushed as she clung to Amina's hand. When they asked to rest, the smuggler barked at them to keep moving, warning of patrols nearby. After weeks of travel, they reached a refugee camp near the border of a neighboring country. It was a sprawling sea of tents, crowded with others who had fled the conflict. The smell of unwashed bodies and cooking fires permeated the air. The family was assigned a tent and given ration cards for food. It was meager, some rice, beans, and bread, but it kept them alive. Layla's fever broke, and Amina thanked the camp's doctor with tears in her eyes. But the camp brought its own challenges. Lines for water were long, and fights often broke out over supplies. Amina and Karim took turns watching the children, always wary of the dangers that lurked even in this supposed sanctuary. Months passed before the family learned they had been approved for asylum in a distant country. The joy was tempered by the uncertainty of what lay ahead. They boarded a crowded bus to the capital, where they would take a flight out, a first for all of them. At the airport, Karim held Amina's hand tightly. "This is it," he said, looking at their children. "A new beginning." The flight was long and filled with emotions: relief, fear, and a bittersweet ache for the home they had left behind. The family arrived in their new country, overwhelmed by the bustling city and the kindness of the volunteers who greeted them. They were settled in a small apartment, provided with basic necessities, and enrolled in language classes. Karim found work as a mechanic, and Amina started sewing for a local shop. Layla and Sammy began school, where they struggled at first, but soon made friends. Slowly, the family rebuilt their lives. Amina hung the photographs they had carried all this way on the wall. Each frame was a reminder of what they had endured and how far they had come. One evening, as the family sat together for dinner, Layla asked, "Will we ever go back?" Amina looked at Karim, then at her children. "One day, perhaps," she said. "But for now, this is home."